President, Shri Jayant Sinha ji. Thank you, sir, for joining us this evening. Her Royal Highness, the Infanta Princess Cristina of Spain, thank you for coming all this way from Spain just for this event. It means a lot to all of us here. And Dr. Khosla, the Chairman of Development Alternatives. Esteemed guests, friends, colleagues who've joined us here today, thank you very much for being with us.
Pat, we should
Kanika?
introduce ourselves.
I'm sorry, I forgot to do that. Why don't you go first?
So my name is Kanika Verma. I'm an Associate Program Director with Development Alternatives. And we have Mr. Srishtan Patara, who is Vice President, Development Alternatives. So we had a very, very intense day today. It felt like we built something special. It felt like it was a micro movement that we had of creating solutions that India really wants, the jobs we really want. To give you a glimpse of the deliberations that we went through the whole day, we've created a short video for you to have a look. Can we have the video, please?
It gives me pleasure to welcome you to this event. This is an event we have been waiting for quite some time.
It's a great pleasure to be here today in relation to the launch in India of the program Work for Progress.
I think it's well known that not only are there millions of people in India who are on the threshold of entrepreneurship and could not only dramatically change their own lives, but also change the lives of people around them.
There are some states where there is a culture of enterprise. People right from the beginning, they would not like to really come and compete for competitive exams to get into services and do certain exams and all that. There is a general culture of amongst the people, how to start up a business, what is to be done,
or how we have represented culture.
First program in India, which I'd like to suggest is very much in sync with the inclusive economic development.
And centralizing things.
What we found was both in the health system and in the public education system, the teachers or the nurses or the doctors don't go there.
Thank you. Thank you, participants through the day who, with unflagging energy, put so much into the conversations, and the speakers who made extremely valuable contributions to our dialogue on the subject. I'd like to now invite Dr. Ashok Khosla, Chairman of the Development Alternatives Group, to share a few thoughts with us on where the future lies and to tell us a little bit about a commitment that the group has made towards creating jobs in very large numbers. Dr. Khosla.
Right here. Thank you. Where's the clicker?
Yeah, that's right.
Right through the day, since the morning, we've heard so many
partial solutions. If only we were able to create awareness. If only we were able to create circumstances where people can become entrepreneurs. If only we could provide finance of the right type. If only we could do this or that. We were skirting around a possible answer. We never actually homed in on it. And for the last year and a half, my colleagues and I at Development Alternatives in Tara have actually been thinking about this issue very deeply. And we've launched a response to it in the form of a company, a holding company with several subsidiaries, which actually in some ways try to answer almost all the points that were raised today in a way that we think is sustainable because it's commercially viable, but it's also good for people and the planet. It's essentially a new kind of business, a brand new kind of business, probably not been tried in any rural area of any third world or developing country, but we believe has the makings of bringing together these ways of doing this. So I just thought I'd show you very quickly a little part of that, solution that we believe will make a difference to the lives of some 700, maybe 800 million people in our own country, and roughly twice that many in Africa and Latin America. It's all about creating an innovative venture to eradicate poverty and to revive the environment. It's called Tara Life. Tara is our brand name. We've been using it for the last 35 years in some of our companies. And the new one is not a life insurance company. It's about creating new lives, Tara Life. This is a picture of our headquarters. And in some ways, it's symbolic of our approach to what we want to do. This is a building that's really so green, it's so environmentally sound that it doesn't even get a rating because it doesn't fit into the conventional ways of measuring greenness. It's 50 or 60% less virgin materials. It's about 40% less embodied energy. It's about 35-40% less operational energy. It's actually made out of wastes. Construction and demolition wastes from the previous building that was there, mining wastes like stone dust, industrial waste, mainly fly ash from power stations. So it's basically substantially cheaper and better, and it's a very attractive building. My colleagues do incredibly creative work there, and we've been offered a great deal of rent for space in this by embassies and by other sorts of organizations. So let me just tell you that over the last 35 years, Development Alternatives have been creating all kinds of new technologies for water harvesting, technologies for water filtering, for drinking water, technologies for fuels like charcoal briquettes, technologies for cooking, technologies for building materials such as compressed earth, which don't need firing and therefore save a lot of carbon emission, technologies for roofing, but particularly technologies for work, for livelihoods. Technologies like the last two bottom pictures in areas like weaving, handmade paper recycling, and a variety of other things I'll show you in a minute. Now, time is running out. Several people have pointed out today that things are not getting better. They're probably getting worse on the job front. We're actually losing ground. We are creating far fewer jobs than the number of job entrants into the market. And this spells danger. So we need to find solutions that go to scale at speed. And that needs three things: innovation, market linkages, and the triple bottom line. Because resources are not easy to get, and you've got to keep regenerating the resources on which your industries depend. And you can bootstrap the village economy if you understand that a lot of this thing can be done locally. You build skills, you use local resources, You set up local industries and markets, and then you can start beginning to meet even aspirational 21st century basic needs. So we're in the business of creating local jobs and local consumption. But we're also in the business of paying well. The local people who make things need also to be able to sell outside the village so that they can meet the requirements of high margin clients. And how do we do that? We do it in a way that generates huge synergies and efficiencies and savings, and therefore make the whole process commercially viable. Now we're working for the next 5 years in 3 states, Madhya Pradesh, UP, and MP. And Bihar. So the 3 states are where our focus will be for 5 solid years. All we're going to do, what I'm going to describe to you, is essentially this. What we're doing is we're setting up local points of presence. We call them Tara hubs. These are, if you like, strip malls, but they are more than that. They're much, much more than that. They are not just for shopping, but they're also for producing. They become the centers of local production, if you like, mini industrial estates. They share a large number of common services like energy, water, security, and so on, and therefore they become much, much more cost efficient. This is an artist's rendition of what we have in our minds. We're building a couple of these in the next 3 or 4 months. This Tara hub basically becomes a place where everybody, literally everybody, within 5 kilometers walking distance, maybe 10 kilometers bicycling distance want to come. Farmers from 20 kilometers will want to come. And the reason is that we're providing them with services they actually need, goods and products they actually need. It's a solar energized place, so we get pretty cheap electricity, and because the hub acts as an anchor client, you can bring the cost of electricity down so much that your excess can be sold to the local communities and to your own factories. This is this service area, the central portion of the Tara hub. We imagine this to be a place where you can see on the top left-hand side the beauty parlor. The window next to it is the tailoring shop. The rooms behind it are things for girls' clubs and literacy training and so on. On the right-hand side is our Skill Development Academy, where we teach people how to do masonry, carpentry, beautician's courses, tailoring, and whatever else is needed, plus more high-tech things, IT-based learning, and so on. Down in the lower, on the ground floor, you see that lady in white. That is the water ATM. There you can get water, about 1 liter for a rupee, and drinking water, and you can fill up your containers, and you can also buy devices to take home to filter water. Next to that is the telemedicine place. This is a telemedicine center where you can get complete diagnostics for as little as 80 to 100 rupees. Most visits to the doctor, 85–90% visits to the doctor, are actually for diagnostics. And you can be connected through the internet to the best doctor in the country. You are able to project to the doctor your ECG, your heart rate, your blood pressure, your lipid profile, and everything else. This is basically a service of the future. What few illnesses that need intervention or doctor's care, this will make an appointment with the nearest doctor for you, and you go and get it done. This is a farmer's service center. Here you can come and get all the information that a farmer needs, seeds, the best seeds, because we buy them in bulk, and all the other services, including diagnostics for your pest diseases. You can show your pest-ridden plant onto a camera, and you will get advice from the local agriculture university. This is the water ATM I talked about, and in essence, we are providing a place where you can get all your basic services met. These are the financial services: credit, ATM, insurance. We're making deals with the banks. At the moment, we're talking to 2 banks where we hope basically to make a partnership with them. This is the playground, creche for children during the daytime, and entertainment, cinema at night. So this is essentially a whole series of things, 2 of which I would like to go into a little more detail on, and that is the Tara Bazaar, which is a place where you can get whatever you aspire to, especially 21st century things like solar devices, better cooking devices, kitchen utensils, but also things that make your life distinctly better, music systems, or the ability to drive snakes away with a solar-powered snake repeller. So it depends on what you need. You can get it here. These are the kinds of things. The old way was to carry all your wood around with you. Now you get these briquettes at prices which are pretty comparable to what your old ways were. Mosquito repellents, food additives, spirulina. You don't have to carry water on your head anymore because you can buy a roller to drag your water around. So these are the kinds of products we are selling at the moment. At the moment, we're having a growth rate of roughly 50% per month, selling products of this type. They are lights and cooking utensils, as I say, and other things. There's demand for other things. The people we've been servicing also want blue jeans and T-shirts and other things. And since we're there, one of the more popular things is the smartwatch. And we're getting a lot of market data. Now, there's a second company called Taragram. Taragram is taking stuff made in the village to the city or to overseas markets. It's sort of like Fab India, if you like. It's essentially creating jobs in villages which produce things like this, good design, good products. These top 2, the bags and the scarves, stoles, are made from 50% cotton and 50% recycled Coca-Cola bottles, PET bottles. So these have a lot of stories in them. They have the environment, they also have the poverty, they have the income generation, and they have the good design. Spices, branded medicines, natural medicines, handicrafts, and so on. So we see that Tara Hub is a kind of a new engine of the new village economy. And in a sense, many of the interventions were about the need for a place where people can go, get information, get credit, buy the things they need, get education and skills training, get their beautician services, and everything else essentially here. And the reason our business plan basically looks good is that you have huge footfalls because of all these multiple revenue streams, and you have huge cost savings because you're sharing services. So we are in the middle of setting this up. My colleagues and I hope to have 2 of these hubs up very soon. They will combine with our other companies which make machines for making building materials, which make factories for making handmade recycled paper, which do other things like skill building. So all of these together, basically, we hope will make the jobs we want. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Khosla, for that presentation, outlining where perhaps the future lies and the kind of role that the Development Alternatives Group could play in creating that future. It's my honor and privilege on behalf of the staff, the family of Development Alternatives and the participants here to now invite the Honorable Minister Shri Jayant Sinha ji to come up to the stage. And Princess Christina, if you'd be kind enough to join us. And our moderator for the evening, Nalin Mehta. Nalin, if you could join us. before we launch into a conversation for this evening, Kanika would like to introduce a video that we put together about jobs we want.
So we've been on a journey for the last few months, interacting with entrepreneurs, hearing their stories through their voices. We wanted to bring you a little bit of that spice into this particular room, and we bring you their stories through their voices through this particular video. Can we have the video, please?
गांव वाले को अकेले खेती का काम दिखाता है।
फर्स्ट ऑप्शन तो वैसे नौकरी है लोगों के लिए, अगर सरकारी जॉब मिल जाए, और नहीं मिलती है तो बिजनेस ही दूसरा उसके। खेती में उतनी आमदनी नहीं है।
हम ये सोच रहे हैं कि खेती का काम तो हर कोई करता है, लेकिन ऐसा एक काम करें कि जिसमें नाम रोशन हो और अच्छा काम हो।
मैं कैना गांव की हूँ और कैना में चूड़ियों की दुकान चलाती हूँ औरतों के लिए। जी, गांव की औरतें बाहर से माल लाती थी, मतलब सौदा चूड़ी उड़ी वगैरह कंगन, और अब मैंने दुकान रख ली तो मेरे गांव से यहीं से लेती हैं, तो मतलब उनकी प्रॉब्लम भी सॉल्व हो गई और मेरी दुकान भी और बढ़ती जा रही।
हल्दी मिर्ची धनिया ये तो घर पे होती थी, तो हम अपने घर पे क्या करते थे, हम बाजार से नहीं लेते थे, तो हमें हमारा घर का माल हमें अच्छा लगा, तो हमने ये सोचा कि अगर हम अकेले खाएंगे तो हम शुद्ध रहेंगे, जैसे शुद्ध माल हम खाएंगे और 4 लोगों को खिलाएंगे तो सबको अच्छा लगेगा। इसलिए हमने ये काम 4 लोगों में 2 लोगों को साथ में लेके हमने काम किया।
गांव की महिलाओं को मैं बोर्ड बनाना सिखाती हूँ और स्टेबलाइजर का जो ट्रांसफार्मर होता है उसको बनवाती हूँ। ऐसा काम तो कोई महिला करती नहीं है, लेकिन हम भी देखते देखते सोचे कि हम भी ऐसा ही करें, जो नाम हो इसके कि हम बोर्ड का काम करते हैं, बिजली का काम कर रहे हैं। महिलाएं की लड़कियां की इच्छा बढ़ी ऊपर अंदर से, उनको आइए सिखाएंगे हम।
ये मेरा मकान काफ़ी दिनों से खाली पड़ा था, तो यहाँ पे हम सोचे कि अंदर भी है, रोड पे तो है नहीं कि दुकान खोल के बैठ जाएंगे, इसलिए हमने इस आरोप के बारे में सोच लिए करने के लिए। नेट का ज़माना चल रहा है, उसे मोबाइल के जरिए इसको जानकारी धीरे धीरे लेते लेते 1.5 साल में हम लोग काफ़ी जगह गए और जानकारी जब कुछ समझ में आया तो ये काम यही चालू किया जाए।
कैमरा इसलिए लिया हमने कि हमें फिल्मों में जाने का शौक था, हम सोचे थे कि मैं फिल्मों में काम करूँगा। इसके बाद हमने कैमरा लिया तो हमें शादी के ऑफर आने लगे, तो फिर हम शादियों में अपना कैमरा ले जाने लगे। तो हमारे पास कैमरा बांधने के लिए आते ही निमंत्रण कहीं और छपाना पड़ते थे, तो बोलते कि आप निमंत्रण भी छापते हो क्या? तो जब हम छापते नहीं थे, जब हमारे पास ज़्यादा मांग पड़ी तो हमने कहा कि हम ये काम भी कर लेंगे। तो जो हमारे वहाँ वीडियो कैमरा भी बांधने के लिए आते हैं उनका शादी कार्ड भी हम छापते हैं।
हमारे पिताजी हों चाहे दादाजी हों, वो बिजनेस पुराने ढंग से कर रहे थे। उसमें हमने सोचा कुछ नई तकनीक लाएं जिससे और लोगों को रोजगार मिले और बढ़िया हमको भी फ़ायदा हो, व्यूवर को भी फ़ायदा हो। हमने एक कैंपस लगाए हुए हैं जिसमें 9 लूम हैंड नाटेड है, जिसमें 22 लोगों का रोजगार दे रहे हैं। इसके बाद इलेक्ट्रिक मशीन भी लगाए हैं, जिसमें हमने 15 इलेक्ट्रिक मशीन लगाए हैं, इस समय 12 लोगों को रोजगार दे रहे हैं।
महंगाई बढ़ गया है भाई, इसीलिए महिलाएं बिजनेस करती हैं।
गांव में भी कोई की दुकान नहीं है, सिर्फ मेरी दुकान है।
क्योंकि सर ऐसा होता है कि अब हम लोग छोटे लोग हैं तो हमारी अच्छी चीज़ भी नज़रअंदाज कर दी जाती है, जो बड़े लोग हैं उनकी कोई भी चीज़ हो, मटेरियल हो, मिट्टी, तो उनका सही रहता है कि हाँ जी सही है।
कठिनाई का सामना तो हर प्रकार होता है, कोई भी बिजनेस शुरू करिए।
नहीं, इस समय तो ज़रूरत है कि खरीदार जो मार्केट में जो जहाँ बिक रहा है वहाँ तक पहुँचने की,
मतलब बेचने के लिए कोई अच्छा से और बेचे, जहाँ जाए हमारा माल खपे और उसके आगे और हिम्मत बढ़े कि हम और बनाएं इसको, और महिलाओं को रखे बनवाएं, ये चाहते हैं।
जी, पैसे की दिक्कत सबको होती है, अगर किसी बिजनेस में पैसा ज़्यादा लगाएंगे तो प्रॉफिट ऑटोमेटिक बढ़ जाएगा।
अगर मुझे पूंजी मिल जाए जल्द से जल्द तो मैं अपनी दुकान को और जल्द से जल्द बढ़ा सकती हूँ।
जैसे आर्थिक रूप से हमारी मदद हुई तो आर्थिक रूप से सामान बढ़ाया तो ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा बुकिंग ली, ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा जब बुकिंग लेंगी तो ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा लोगों को रोज़गार भी मिलेगा
और हमारा भी नाम रोशन होगा और ये अच्छा लगेगा यहाँ पे
और समस्याएं सारी दूर हो जाएंगी।
Thank you so much. I would like to, on this occasion, highlight the commitment that we've made in the Work for Progress program to two aspects. One is innovation in methods, starting with dialogue and then co-creation, that would unleash entrepreneurship in ways that hopefully have not been seen till date. And the other is the emphasis we're placing in the program on partnership. Work for Progress is an innovation platform, a learning platform on which during the next year and hopefully beyond that, we'd like to work with many more partners. This evening, I'd also like to acknowledge the contribution made by entrepreneurs. We have, in the course of the last 6 months or so, worked with over 300 existing and to-be entrepreneurs. And then, of course, over the past few decades, the number would exceed something of the order of 30,000 entrepreneurs that have set up businesses with support from the Development Alternatives Group. It's our belief in the power of enterprise that has kept us going in one sense, many of us for 3 decades, and will spur us further on in this journey to create transformation that is meaningful for the individuals involved and valuable for the nation. So I'd like to acknowledge the contributions that our entrepreneurs have made, many of whom are here. आप सबके साहस, उत्साह और कड़ी मेहनत की वजह से ये कार्यक्रम आगे बढ़ रहा है. हम आप सबके आभारी हैं. A round of applause please for the entrepreneurs who are here. And with those words, may I hand over to you, Nalin, to carry us through the evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sinha, just as you would have left your office to come to the Claridges Hotel, your government put out new GDP numbers for the last quarter, and those are up to 6.3%, which is a big shift from the dip we've seen in the last 4 or 5 quarters. The question I wanted to ask you, sir, firstly, congratulations on the new numbers. But what do these numbers mean for the kinds of people we saw in the video just now, and for the real problem that your government is facing of jobless growth, the kind of problem you always attack the opposition for when they were in power?
First of all, thank you very much, first of all, for having me here, and thank you, Ashok and Your Highness, for giving me an opportunity to interact with you on this vitally important topic. I'm very glad we have a chance to engage in dialogue on these matters, because I think the central topic, the central challenge of our times is creating good jobs for our people, whether that is in the West, in developed countries, or in India. That is really the central challenge of our times. So I'm very appreciative of what you all are doing in this regard, and I had a chance, of course, to listen to what you all are doing with Tara Hub. And Ashok, I must compliment you on a very innovative initiative in that regard, because I think those rural enterprise centers are a very good way of engendering entrepreneurship and giving people an opportunity to enhance their income generation potential. So those are just my overall remarks, but let me come to the question that you posed, which is what do the GDP growth numbers mean and what do they specifically mean as far as jobs are concerned. As far as the GDP growth numbers are concerned, I have been saying for quite a while that our economy is shifting gears. We are going from third gear to fourth gear, and every time you shift gears in a car, the car slows down a little bit and then picks up momentum and goes into a higher gear and moves faster. We've put into the economy some very fundamental structural reforms, obviously GST, demonetization, the bankruptcy code, all the things we're doing in infrastructure, in social security. These are very fundamental structural reforms that are now underway as far as India is concerned. They were necessary and essential for our ongoing growth, and obviously when those structural reforms move through the system, we do have a situation where the economy can slow down a little bit before it picks up speed again, and that's really the process that we've just seen. That's at the macro level. But of course, as you correctly pointed out, when we talk about the macro level, it is of less importance to the people on the ground, the people I represent as a Lok Sabha member of Parliament from Hazaribagh in Jharkhand, where the stories that people were relating on video are the stories that I know well and I deal with every day. For those people, the macro numbers, what's happening in Delhi or Mumbai are of much less importance. What's much more important is, have the rains been good so that I have got a good crop? And when I get a good crop, am I able to sell it at a remunerative price to a fair procurement agency, whether it's a PAC, whether it is FCI? What are the traders buying those crops at? Am I able to supplement my income with the kinds of opportunities we saw on the video, which is selling vegetables, selling spices, doing cultivation of fruits, of hens, of fish, those kinds of supplemental sources of income. And so what we have to be able to do, and I'm very glad that with Tara Hub you're looking at those kinds of opportunities, is for the vast number of our people that are in rural areas that are looking for supplemental income, that we are finding those kinds of sources and we are providing those kinds of skills and opportunities to be able to unlock those supplemental income generating opportunities. And of course, when millions and millions and millions of people across India do that and are able to enhance and generate more resources that way, obviously GDP will grow as well. But really we have to work it at the grassroots level, at a bottoms up level, before we celebrate anything at the macro level. That really is what our government is also focused on as well. Certainly we are hoping to see it in the numbers, but much more importantly, we want to see it in the day-to-day lives of our people. I'll conclude by saying the following. Ladies and gentlemen, we are on track today, and certainly by 2022 we will achieve this, but we may even achieve this sooner, that in every village in this country, in every district in this country, we can say to every family in this country, you will have a pakka house, that is, you'll have a house made of bricks, not mud. You will have electricity. You will have a gas cylinder to cook your food. You will have a toilet. You will have a bank account, and you will have a pakka road, that is an all-weather road that will link your village to the nearest city. These are the kinds of promises that we are making to the people of India. And I'm very pleased to say, ladies and gentlemen, and I know it firsthand because this is where I spend my life, we are fulfilling those promises for the people of India, and that's how we are giving them a better life. And obviously we need to now supplement that with additional sources of income and other ways in which they can improve their lives.
Thank you, Mr. Sinan. We will come back to the question of the record, your record in terms of job creation vis-a-vis the back end that has been re-engineered, as you pointed out. But let me ask Dr. Khosla, sir, roughly most people agree, most experts agree that we need to create something like 11 to 12 million jobs a year to, in terms of our demographic needs. Where, from your experience, where are these jobs going to be created, and how is the job market really shifting as you see it?
There several time horizons I think you need to look at in order to answer a question like that. The immediate need for creating these 12 to 15 million jobs which per year, which are desperately needed to just keep society together, have to be in areas that are familiar to us. Construction is a very big employer. You need to train large numbers of people. If everybody's going to have a decent house, you need a lot of construction, plumbers, masons, etc. So there are going to be jobs in areas that are off-farm and in areas that have very large employment-creating potential, like road building, construction, etc. In the long run, one has to recognize that we're running into a problem also of resources. It's not just people. People need the jobs, and we've got to do everything we can within a foreseeable future to put everybody into a decent, meaningful, remunerative job. But in doing so, if you're going to wipe out all the topsoil making bricks, if you're going to end up by destroying all the rivers by over-pumping water, if you're going to destroy the forests because you need fuel, etc., then the next generation is going to pay a pretty heavy price. So I think it's a much more complex issue than just simply creating jobs. The kind of jobs that you're going to need to create have to be thoughtfully based on sustainable jobs, sustainable livelihoods, which can go on forever because the productivity of the land and its resources is not destroyed in the process of creating the jobs. So what we need to do is to design our systems for entrepreneurs as well as for government programs and indeed civil society to come together and say, look, we are going to fulfill the earliest possible goal of creating full employment, as much as full employment can be, but also we're going to use that to regenerate the resources. There are very large numbers of jobs needed for recreating forests, for bringing back the water systems. We work in Bundelkhand, and the Bundelas 400 years ago had developed all these incredible water harvesting structures from which we learned a lot. And these are labor-intensive jobs which are also extremely good from the point of view of rejuvenating the environmental resource base. So it's a very much more complex thing than can be answered in 1 minute. But I think the ingredients of that decision, that decision series, which will lead to jobs not only for us, but our children and grandchildren, is going to have to take a lot of these issues into account.
So journalists have a habit of asking 1 minute soundbite questions. So, Princess Christina, if I can turn to you. I mean, of course, the scale of India is, and the scale of the issue in India for employment and jobs is so high. But what has your experience been of the La Caixa Foundation globally as far as this issue is concerned, and your experiences in India particularly?
Okay. First of all, thank you very much. It's a real privilege to be here this evening with His Honorable Minister and Dr. Khosla. And I want to, before I start, I would like to acknowledge the work that all the team of Development Alternatives they have been doing to put this event together, which I think is really very timely in India's situation and also in what concerns job creation in the world. And I feel especially pleased and humble at the same time to be sharing this room with the entrepreneurs that are here together with us today, showing us all their products, those that they sell in their villages, and hopefully an example for all of us to continue. As has been said today, and as we've heard on various occasions, and the Minister was also commenting, one of the key challenges of the 2030 agenda is creating employment. And also according to the international labor organizations, we all know that 2 out of every 5 young people are out of the job market. And I think it's them we have to concentrate our efforts on. I don't know if it's this that's...
Maybe at...
Is it okay like that? Yeah. Okay, and it's within this context that La Caixa Foundation is launching the program Work for Progress, with the main objective of promoting job creation for vulnerable women and young people facing difficulties. Since, as we saw in the video this morning, and maybe the minister doesn't know, but since Caixa was created in 1904, Caixa is strongly committed to the progress of people and to building a better society for all. And with these reasons, one of our pillars of activity is also stimulating employment, both in Spain and internationally. In Spain, most of our work all the activities are done mostly in Spain, and we run a program called Incorpora, which works since 2006, and it helps people at risk of exclusion to find employment. Since its creation, Incorpora has promoted more than 135,000 job placements, offering training to empower and develop skills among highly vulnerable people. We also provide support to the companies that take over these young people, and also from the selection to the workplace integration. And internationally, together with education, global health, and humanitarian action, employment is one of our main goals. And in this sense, we're very happy to be here today to launch the program Work for Progress together with Development Alternatives, which will lead, we hope and believe, to a change on the paradigm of international cooperation and development as we have understood it in the last years. We believe it comes straight from the ground, from the country, from the people, and it's that we really look for, is connecting the dots to a common purpose. And our experience in India, we have been working, collaborating with different organizations in India since 2001. So we've been here for a number of years, and with Development Alternatives since, I think, 4 or 5 years. And it's that experience working with such a good partner that has led us to the launch today of this program.
Thank you. Mr. Sinha, one of the, whenever this question of unemployment and jobs is raised, one of the responses the Prime Minister always has is about micro enterprises and the fact that much of that employment is not captured in official data. Why is it that we still do not have a robust system of data collection that captures and which allows us to have very pointed policy on that front, and your view on where your government's policies on MSMEs in particular are going?
Since our government assumed office in May 2014, our belief is that there has in fact been strong job growth. And the reason that we are able to say that is because when we look at a variety of indicators, such as, for example, the loans that have been given out through Mudra, which is a micro loan program, which have been given to some 8 crore people. And in addition to that, we look at the increase in the number of EPFO subscribers, because we've taken people who are in the informal workforce and we've included them in the formal workforce by giving them job cards, by giving them social security and so on. And we brought them within the scope of the EPFO. And when we look at the entrepreneurial sector, whether it's an Amazon delivery person, whether it's somebody working for Zomato in their kitchens and so on, when we look at the entrepreneurial sector, we find strong job growth there as well. Now, even as I'm giving you these examples of Mudra loans and entrepreneurship in these fast-growing enterprises and even in small and medium businesses through the EPFO growth, I also know, which is the point that you're bringing up, is that much of this is not picked up in the formal jobs data. And as you also know, there is a effort underway which was kicked off by Dr. Panagaria, who was vice chair of Niti Aayog, to actually formalize our job creation data across these other sectors, not just the organized sector as it's done right now, but these other sectors, the micro-entrepreneurship sector, the informal sector, as well as the entrepreneurial sector, along with the organized sector, and really be able to pull all of that together so that we have a much more accurate picture on what's happening with jobs. That effort is underway, obviously, given the scale and scope of India and the fact that we are looking at sectors that have not been looked at previously. This effort will take some time. The expectation is that by next year, not 2018, but towards the end of 2018, early 2019, we will have that data collection effort fully completed, and we'll be able to give a much truer picture of what has been happening with jobs.
In your experience, as far as the MSME sector is concerned, and there has been a concerted push, at least the central level, on that, with some coordination with states in the last 2 or 3 years. In your experience, how is this sector growing or not growing, and the divergences across states?
In absolute terms, of course, it must be growing because the population is growing and the economy is growing. But in relative terms, I think partly because of the recent movement towards formalizing the informal sector, I suppose you would say that it's going down because many of them are becoming more and more formal. But in terms of sort of size and magnitude rather than operational culture, I would say that the MSME businesses still account for whatever 80%. That's true in every country. It's true in Germany, it's true in Japan, it's true in Spain or in the US. A very large part of the production of most economies depends on very small enterprises. And in India, that's going to continue to be true, and it's not a bad thing, as long as they can get the kind of security and the kind of services and infrastructure that makes it possible for them to compete. Essentially, the issue is one of producing services and goods that can compete in the market by small and marginalized peripheral actors. And I think that's happening. That's, it's the policy of government to do that, and it's certainly the effort of NGOs and civil society. Dr. Rajesh Tandon is here. We're all basically working towards getting that formalizing of informal sector in such a way that it doesn't destroy the good parts of the informal, but it gives people the ability to run businesses.
So has demonetization and GST affected the sector, or is that a temporary blip?
Yeah, it's a temporary, I presume, I hope that it is a temporary bit. It certainly has affected it. That's common knowledge. It's not something that one can hide. The process of moving from having no accounting systems to one that can conform to GST is going to take a little while. I mean, people have been trained, you have to set up the systems, the data flows, the infrastructure, and that is hopefully going to sort itself out pretty soon. But in the beginning, it would be hard to say that it was painless. It certainly has hurt a large number of people that we know, hopefully temporarily, in creating a dip. In terms of demonetization...
Ashok, let me just interrupt you for a second, just to emphasize that when we talk about GST, we must take into account the fact that if your turnover is less than rupees 20 lakh, you're not within GST at all. So the vast majority of small and medium micro enterprises and so on are out of it in any case. And then under the composition scheme, up to 1.5 crores, which is 15 million rupees, which is a very large turnover for small and medium enterprises, you just have to use the composition scheme, file a quarterly return, and you're done. So it's not as if there is an onerous compliance burden or anything for small and medium businesses. And the 1.5 crore limit is such that I think I haven't seen the exact numbers on it, but the vast majority, perhaps more than 90% of India's enterprises fall below the 1.5 crore limit. So it's only the much larger enterprises that are already quite well equipped in terms of accounting staff and ability to file their taxes that really get into the purview of the more complicated compliance associated with full-blown input tax credit and so on. So the GST has been designed in such a way that its compliance requirements are actually very, very simple for small and medium businesses.
So you're confident?
Sorry, go ahead.
You're confident that the teething issues and so on, you've got over the worst of the teething troubles?
We said right from the outset that as far as GST is concerned, it will take about a year for the system to settle down. And teething trouble is on multiple dimensions, not just in terms of filing. As far as compliance is concerned, there's an entire ecosystem of chartered accountants and tax lawyers. They have to get used to it. The GSTN network, which is where you actually do your filings, has to work in a simple and seamless way. There has to be clarity in terms of the rates, the classification of goods and services and so on. That also is being achieved as the GST Council works through the feedback that we receive. So the overall system, which has multiple facets, has to be settled down. And any complex system, as an engineer, I can tell you that it's a fallacy to think that any complex system at birth, right from the get-go, is going to be perfect and all the I's are going to be dotted and all the T's are going to be crossed. It doesn't work that way. When you implement a complex system like reforming the entire indirect tax structure of this country, there is going to be fine-tuning and tweaking and improving as we go along. We've always expected that process to take a year. We implemented it July 1st. We are still only 4 or 5 months into the process, so give it a few more months, and then by that time it will be fully stable. But it's already, asymptotically getting to a point where most of the big problems are being solved, and so we are getting to the point where we are now working on the somewhat smaller issues.
You were saying, and then I'll come to visit Christine.
No, I think Jayant has more or less corroborated what I said. There are pains which are sorting themselves out. I think in the long run, India needs a GST. In the long run, India needs to have a cleaned up monetary system. So that is not an issue. The issue is that in the early stages after these interventions, there was a certain amount of disruption.
Princess Christina, one of the parts of the puzzle, of course, is the private sector and its role in philanthropy. Bill Gates was here very recently, and he was talking again about the role of private sector in India and its role in philanthropy. What is your sense about the role the private sector can play as far as the MSME sector is concerned and with its philanthropic outreach?
Thank you. At La Caixa Foundation, we really strongly believe that the private sector has an increasingly important role to play. But not only because of the funds it can provide, but also because of other resources like expertise, knowledge sharing, capacity of advocacy, and the sharing of best practices. So it's a question of just sharing on this and bringing everyone together. I would like to highlight one of the programs that we're very proud of is the Cooperantes Caixa, and it's an initiative of international corporate volunteering, where the employees of the Caixa offer their technical support within the fields of expertise to the projects which we have funded. And I must say it's very well received between the employees of La Caixa, and they spend their 3 weeks holidays in one of the projects that fits. You match their expertise with the needs of the organization, and so it's a win-win situation. So it's again sharing their knowledge and sharing their capacity, and they learn from the organizations where they are going to spend their 3 weeks. Another example is the Business Alliance for Child Vaccination, also promoted by La Caixa Foundation, which offers companies and individuals, clients of Caixa Bank, the opportunity to collaborate against the fight against child mortality. And through the funding of the delivery of the pneumococcal vaccine in Mozambique, in this program we developed with Gavi the Vaccine Alliance. But again, going back to the private sector and the role that we can play, I think we should point out that private organizations are autonomous, they're flexible, they innovate, and they take risks. So I think this is a strong point that we can, develop, and this is very relevant to promote partnerships. And it's all about partnerships, it's bringing the organizations together, it's bridging between civil society, private sector, public sector, and different organizations. And therefore, the capacity of sharing knowledge, moving together, accelerating, and scaling. So
I can pick up on that word, innovation. Mr. Sinha, in the age of automation, in the age of artificial intelligence, with the nature of work itself is shifting, how does that impact India and the challenge that your government has of making sure that jobs increase and are not affected by by AI and automation in the way that, because entire global chains are, supply chains and value chains are shifting, as you well know. So how does that affect us, and how is your government going to deal with that?
Nalin, that's a very wide-ranging question. It would take a few libraries to answer that. So you asked for a sound bite, and so I'll have to answer in a sound bite, which is, we'll do very well, thank you. And the answer, of course, is the reason I say that, jokes apart, is because we have one of the best startup ecosystems on the planet. We have very entrepreneurial people. And with respect to our policies are very supportive of entrepreneurship, of developing the skills of our people, of providing them financing and so on. And of course, and this is one thing I want to correct you on, government doesn't create jobs. It's the people of India that will create jobs. It will be the entrepreneurs, the enterprises of India that will create jobs. Our role is simply to support you all and to make sure there's nothing that's getting in the way of private enterprise, of our entrepreneurs, of our people to go out and find productive work for them to do. So we just have to basically provide the support and make sure we can facilitate all of that. And when I look at everything that we've done over the last 3.5, 4 years in that regard, I think anybody would say, whether it's ease of doing business, whether it's Startup India, whether it is the India Aspiration Fund, whether it is the ability to forge new policies and drones, for example, in each of those different areas, we are providing the necessary tools and the resources for our people to go out and be great entrepreneurs, which we know that they can be. And as our people go out and do that, we will in fact create the jobs, and we will take advantage of all of the new technologies that you mentioned.
So is the government doing enough to spark innovation in the sense that government policies are often very prescriptive, top-down? Do you see that changing? And is the government doing enough in your experience?
Sunil, I would like to answer that in 2 or 3 sound bites. It's not one that will answer it properly. One is the area of S&T, R&D. India is probably the only third world country, developing country, that from way back had a policy of 1% of its GDP being devoted to R&D, but it never quite met that. But gradually, unfortunately, I believe it's been going down quite significantly. It's not anywhere near what it itself had basically promised. But not only that, but if you look at the countries that really did make it, the countries like South Korea or Japan, Taiwan, Singapore, they were up to the 2 and 3%. They were not, into R&D just naam ke vaste. It was a real force for economic development. And I think we need to do a lot more on supporting S&T, but not just S&T, not S&T just for space and for atomic energy and for big industry. We need a lot more S&T for the kinds of issues that we were talking about here. S&T that would pay off hugely in terms of fulfilling basic needs of people, of improving our farming systems, and of generally creating possibilities for entrepreneurship to open new markets of various types. There are huge unmet needs in our country, in the world, and they need to be really fulfilled and responded to in a different way. I mentioned the whole area, which is really almost unknown territory. It's off the radar screen in most countries, which is creating a milieu, an environment in which the environment becomes the subject of creating jobs and livelihoods, because we have a very degraded environment, and it's got to be brought back. There's a tremendous amount of job creation in that field. I mentioned forests. At a hectare, improving a hectare of forest is good for at least 4 jobs, and maybe more, depending on what kind of forestation you're doing. The same applies, of course, to bringing back the soils. Our soils, particularly in your area, in Bihar and East UP, are under such severe threat, not only from erosion, from water, floods and so on, but from the building industry. The red brick industry in Bihar is actually now pretty well outlawed, because there are 2 major issues with red bricks. You create a huge amount of carbon emissions, you're using a lot of energy, and you're destroying the topsoil. So, but there are solutions to it. Fly ash, for example, is a major substitute which can develop a whole range of other building materials. So we need a lot more focused research and development in these kinds of areas. I would say that the other things that can be done much more strongly is being able to make the small and remote businesses able to do the things that they're best at doing and feed them into the mainstream economy, which I don't think has been adequately addressed. We need to do a lot more because we find a lot of gaps in that when we're working in the field.
So now how do you bridge the gap between high-minded policy in Delhi and what's actually happening at the last mile?
I'm a last mile person, even though I do spend some time in Delhi as well. And I can tell you that the focus very much is delivery at the grassroots. Like I said, whether it is the essential facilities, a house, electricity, water, or whether it is job creation opportunities, income generating opportunities, those are precisely the topics and areas that we are focused on right now. I think what Ashok is bringing up, which is I think also a very good point, that we need to think about how we can tilt the incentives that way, is we've got to bring the environment and the cost of degrading the environment also into the pricing equation, so that when people are making homes, they're not just making it with red brick, but they're using other alternatives as well. So part of what we have to do is to be able to find ways in which we can price those externalities and ensure that people are appropriately responding to those prices. Because again, as I said, government can just create the framework, it can just be a facilitator, but really with 1 billion people, we have to ensure that their actions are guided in the right ways. And that's where the policy part comes in.
In terms of a comparative perspective, what are the kind of innovative elements that inform the Caixa Foundation's work, and how do you see that when you look at what's happening in India?
Well, we have experience from a few years of doing international development, but in the past years, the new strategic plan of La Caixa Banking Foundation has been approved. So we've adapted our framework to the basic lines of this strategic plan. And basically, it talks about concentrating the programs in certain areas to have more of an impact and to give visibility and share best practices between ones and the others. No? So we aim to connect the networks, we aim to share what we learn from the different programs that we're going to develop, because this, as was said, this program is going to be developed, work for progress in India, but also in Peru and Mozambique. So the idea is to learn from the different networks, their methodologies, share ones with the others, share their knowledge, share their experiences, and communicate and grow together. So it's a process of learning by doing. No?
Mr. Sinha, when in his first Independence Day speech, the Prime Minister spoke about how in Delhi he encountered different government departments at war with themselves. I'm just paraphrasing. So that's in terms of different departments or ministries having different priorities and many of them not meeting. So after 3.5 years, as far as the question of jobs and work is concerned, to what extent have you been able to overcome the challenges of competing interests, competing fiefdoms within the government itself, and to bring it towards one converged aim?
Not just the government, but all of India is working as a Team India, to ensure a better quality of life for all of our people, and that starts obviously with creating high quality jobs. So that is something that we are singularly focused on, of course. But again, as I said, our job is to create the framework so that all of you can go out and be successful and create jobs and create opportunities for our people. So it really is, as I said, a partnership, a team that we have to work, and I think we all should collectively feel very good about the fact that we are in fact working as a team and we are making that happen right now.
Politician's answer, but
you asked a media question, you'll get a politician's answer.
Well, that's the nature of the soundbite. Dr. Khosla, in terms of,
you want me to add to that?
Yes, please, before I ask you the next question.
Well, from a civil society point of view, I don't think we've got the team we need. I think Jayant is right, that the intention is there to have everyone pulling in the same direction, and God, the country needs that. It is a privilege to be an Indian citizen, and I think most Indian citizens would like to live in the kind of world that the government wishes to bring about. But I'm afraid the silos do exist. Silos don't just exist among sectors in the economy, sectors in the government. Silos, we see them all the time. Ministries, they do meet in the cabinet meeting, but there's a fair amount to be done to improve the communication between different ministries. But the other sectors, the social sectors, the civil society, for example, doesn't today feel a part of that team. To be truthful, if you ask any civil society person today whether they are able to have the confidence of going to government and being able to convince them to at least listen to their viewpoint, it's pretty difficult at the moment. It's been easier at times, it's been more difficult in the past. We've had 70 years of history, and I can say that out of half of that, I've known civil society being quite useful and contributing to national development. Right now, I'm afraid that is not true. So I do want to just put that on the table. I mean, you know, the government's viewpoint may well be more accurate than mine, but all I can say is I can reflect the viewpoints of the civil society people I work with, and they don't feel they're at the table.
You just answered the question I was going to ask you, Mr. Sinha. The political dispensation may have changed, the intentions or the stated intentions may have changed, but the nature of the state remains the same. Your response to that?
No, with all due respect to civil society, my own submission would be, and this is what I did in my own life, both as a private sector person and as someone who was a very major donor and investor to civil society organizations, is that the answers lie with you, not with the government. The government has, in the lives of the people whose videos that we saw, or the people who are there with their products and services, generally has a relatively small role to play. It's not a zero role, there is a role, and there are interfaces that can be problematic and so on. But by and large, most of what you have to do in civil society pertains to your own activities, your own innovation, your own entrepreneurship, and your own business models. So the answer lies with you, not necessarily with government. And in fact, I would urge you, Nalin, even as you ask these questions, to focus much less on government and what government can do, and focus much more on what we as entrepreneurs, as enterprises, as civil society can do to create good jobs at the grassroots level. As I said again, and I will repeat it, government can only facilitate. At the end of the day, it's up to us to come up with the innovations, to come up with the solutions, so that you know, everything works really, really well. I'll just metaphorically, because you do want a soundbite, let me tell you a story. There's a story of a person who was taken to hell, and he was shown what hell was like. And in hell, he found that there were a bunch of people sitting around a soup pot. And in the soup pot, it was a very big pot, and they had very large spoons, and with those spoons, they were trying to feed themselves. But the spoons were very long, they were longer than their arms, so that they couldn't pick up the soup and feed themselves. So they were all very unhappy, and everybody was very hungry, and they'd been starving for eons. And that's what hell was like. And so then this person said, now that I've seen hell, show me what is heaven like. And he was taken to heaven, and he saw exactly the same scene, but everybody was satisfied, everybody was was fully fed, and they were all feeling very good about themselves. And the answer was very simple. Instead of trying to feed themselves, they were feeding each other. And I think that's the kind of mindset we have to have in civil society and in the private sector, which is, let's work together to solve our problems. If there's something that we need to fix at a policy level, let's engage as stakeholders and let's get those problems solved. And by and large, I'll say, whether it is this government or the previous government, good recommendations, good policy alternatives do get acted upon. May take a little while longer in sometimes, but by and large, they do get acted upon. I think the real challenge for us in India, as far as government is concerned, is not Delhi. It's actually the block development office. When you get right down to the district level, you get to the panchayats, you get to the block levels, that's where we have to do more to be able to get people to support our micro entrepreneurs and our people. That part is difficult to fix. That's a societal problem. It's not that one government in Delhi is going to change any of that, or one government in Ranchi or Patna is going to change all that. That we as a society have to think very differently about what the role of the state is at that level. The role of the state is not extractive, but the role of the state is to be able to empower and facilitate people. And that is a big mindset change that we as a civilization and as a society needs to have, which is a much longer, much more complicated conversation around, what is the nature of the state, how do people conceptualize the role of the state in India? And I don't want to get into that, that's because not a soundbite at all. But all I'm saying is that we should concentrate our energies on how we can help each other.
Right. So I think just to reinforce what the Minister said, I think it's true that the change is going to come from the multiple methodologies, from the multiple actors, and have them come all together and to work for the future. No? I think when there's an attitude of collaborating and of sharing and of wanting to build a better society for our families and our future generations, I think that's very important.
We are running out of time, so closing comments from you, Dr. Khosla, and then the final word to the Minister, at least on this panel.
Thank you. No, I think we've had a wonderful day, covered a lot of ground, meeting of minds that were really quite extraordinary. There were people from government, there were people from civil society, but there were people from business who all, I think, converged on many of the issues that I tried to show with my Tara Hub example, where you are really looking for a way to reach the people and let them reach you. So this co-creation that is basic part of this Work for All program really means opening channels of communication, two ways, of trust, of confidence, of being able really to communicate in a way that gives you the confidence that you're going somewhere. I don't think anybody's really asking for services either from government or from anybody else. Most of what I heard was that we just need to be allowed to get on with our job. And sometimes that's been difficult, and I hope that it will continue to get better and better in the future. Thank you.
Once again, let me compliment you all for this initiative and the work that the foundation is doing, the work that Development Alternatives is doing, the work that all of you are doing in terms of grassroots entrepreneurship and co-creation. That's really the way forward. And if all of you can work together, collaborate, come up with new solutions, innovative solutions, I think we as a country will progress very rapidly. And of course, as I've said earlier, and I'll reiterate, as government, we're here to support you, we're here to facilitate you, and we're here to make you very, very successful. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sinha. I would have loved to ask you about your ministry, civil aviation, but I have been told not to go out of syllabus, so I won't. And thank you so much, Princess Christina and Dr. Khosla and Mr. Sinha.
Thank you. A big round of applause, please. Thank you. We'll need you. Yeah. Thank you so much, Shri Jayant Sinha ji, Princess Christina, Dr. Khosla, and Nalin for that wonderful conversation. There is one order of business left, and I'd request your patience and understanding for another few minutes. We've been on a journey, as Kanika had described a bit earlier, And on this journey, there's been a period of intense dialogue with entrepreneurs across Uttar Pradesh that's already led to some innovation in terms of how people you saw in the video have set up enterprises. And we thought we'd put together these experiences in a document that on the one hand captures the journey thus far, but on the other will probably inspire people to take similar journeys and hopefully inform development action and policy measures in the days to come. And we'd like to therefore request our esteemed guests to unveil a monograph that we put together. The team here did a phenomenal job in putting it together, and they'd like to present the monograph to our guests. Yeah. If you could please unwrap the monograph. The monograph is titled Jobs We Create, and the reason why we thought that would be an extremely apt title is that we progressed in the journey from just understanding the kind of jobs we want, as in people want, to discovering how people on the ground using their capacities are able to create jobs. So we commend to all of you this monograph, Jobs We Create. We are going to save a little bit of paper, but the monograph should be on most of your cell phones by now, because for those people whose email IDs we have, it's been transmitted in PDF so that you can look at it at leisure in the days to come. We'd welcome feedback. Thank you very much once again, Honorable Minister, Princess Christina, Dr. Khosla, and Nalin. Thank you. Oops, hi.
Thank you very much.
Yes, and I'd like to request the Minister and all of you to please join us for dinner after. Sorry, I failed to invite you for dinner. Sorry. Thank you so much. Hope you had an interesting evening. Please do join us for dinner right after this. Thank you. My apologies once again. Dinner is